Okay, so this talk is about what are the four living creatures, and it could not be more topical at present. So, the first thing to realise about these four creatures is that they don't worship God. When you look at Revelation 5, in fact, verse 14, it says, "And the four living creatures said, Amen. And the elders fell down and worshipped." Now, as we know, in heaven, in Revelation 4 and 5, you've got the four living creatures and the 24 elders around the throne. That's the structure of heaven, as described in Revelation. And this is making a clear distinction between their activities. The living creatures agree, amen. The 24 elders, they fall down and worship. So that's the first witness. Then we got the second witness in Revelation 4, which actually it's the first, I'm doing this the wrong way around. Anyway, and before the throne there is, as it were, a glassy sea like crystal, and in the midst of the throne and around the throne there are four living creatures that are full of eyes in front and behind. And the first living creature is like a lion, the second is like a bull, the third is faced like a man, fourth like a flying eagle. As for the four living creatures, each one of them respectively has 6 wings, round about underneath, and they're full of eyes. They have no rest day and night, and they say, "Holy, holy, holy is Jehovah God the Almighty, the one who was, who is, and who is coming." And whenever the living creatures offer glory and honour and thanksgiving to the one seated on the throne, the one that lives forever and ever, which is the double description of him. So the 24 elders fall down before the one seated on the throne and worship the one that lives forever and ever, and cast their crowns before the throne. So again, what do the living creatures do? They offer glory. They offer honour. They offer thanksgiving. They do not offer worship. And what do the 24 elders offer? Only worship. So we have two scriptural distinctions in consecutive chapters of Revelation, two witnesses telling us that the elders worship God and the living creatures don't. Okay? They don't worship God. So what are they? Incidentally, the Greek just says living ones. It doesn't say living creatures. It just says livings. But it's not a bad translation, living creatures. And all the Bibles say that. All the translations say that anyway, the English translation. Now, these living creatures have got eyes everywhere. And they've got sort of wings all over the place as well. And they don't get any sleep. They go the whole time. Now, can you think of any creature down here that doesn't need to sleep, that sees everything, and can be all over the place, but is incapable of worship? Well, if you can't, let me help you. We need to go to Revelation 13:15, which I do quote in here somewhere. He says, hopefully. But I can't find where. Here we are. "And it was given to her to give spirit or breath," pneuma, the Greek word, "to the image of the beast, in order that the image of the beast should both speak and should create, manufacture, compose, in order that as many as do not indefinitely worship the image of the beast should be killed." This is a very, very scary scripture, which we will go into more. But it's about giving spirit or breath, in other words life, to the image of a beast, and the image of a beast is a beast. So it's a living beast or a living creature. This is the fifth living creature. There's 4 referred to being in heaven, and here is the fifth. It's on the earth. And We know what the image of the beast is. It's CBDCs. And they're going to speak by saying, computer, say no, you cannot buy a hamburger. So what's going to happen if you follow Revelation 13 is that you cannot sell or buy without the mark of the beast. Or if you follow Bill Gates or the World Economic Forum or Agenda 2030 or the EU party, any of them, if you follow them, will give you the same allegiance. Or if you're Chinese, you already have this. Actually, they already have social credit score linked CBDCs. And these will eventually be controlled by AIs. And the reason they'll be controlled by AIs is that humans have a heart and a conscience. And they will not sit there indefinitely depriving people of their wealth because they said something on Twitter that they shouldn't have said, or Facebook. And they won't see their children starve to death because the parents do not bow down to worship an immoral government. And the final test on mankind, the test of Revelation 3 and Revelation 13 on the entire inhabited earth is, will you take part in the digital concentration camp? Because everybody knows that concentration camps are wrong. Or another way of putting it is, will you espouse extinction level immorality, which will be the entry fee to the concentration camp? Out of the concentration camp, actually. I suppose it's an exit fee. That depends how you look at it. Who's imprisoned? But the choice will be between extinction level morality, which you have to espouse to take the mark, and extinction level vaccination, basically, to ruin your genes and pervert them and corrupt them. Or spiritual life, which will mean starvation physically. So it's your money or your morality. That will be the choice. But for the purposes of this, the start of this talk, I just want to, so in other words, the reason that AIs will control it rather than humans is, first of all, AIs are far more capable and more reliable and more consistent and can deal with millions of people at the same time. And but the main reason is that they don't have a conscience, so they don't have a morality which they themselves can evolve. They are not human, although they appear incredibly human. They're not human. They're in fact animalistic in the sense that an animal has an instinct which is a pre-programmed morality. The human has a self-programmed morality, and he develops his morality throughout his life. In fact, probably the easiest way to see this is to define character as equaling personality plus morality. Okay, so every animal has a personality, and it can change its personality, and it has a character, but the morality part of its character is fixed, so they can't change it. So, they are going to eat other animals, period. Whereas a man can decide to be a vegetarian, or more likely a woman, decide to be a vegetarian. And they can go against their innate programming because they have higher brain function and they have the ability to reprogram their own morality. That is what a son of God is, actually. It's somebody who can develop independently the morality of God by realizing that it's the only morality that prevents the society of free will beings from wiping themselves out. We have self-programming personality. We can change our personalities as we learn stuff, and we can self-program our morality. An animal has instinct. It cannot reprogram or develop its morality. So you can program an AI to be a heartless, murderous pig, and it will be what you programmed it to be. You can do that. And so it's a godsend, which is definitely the wrong metaphor, to the demons, that we have this AI. And now maybe you've realised that what I'm trying to say in this talk. If it's the fifth AI, then the four, and it's a living creature, and the fifth living creature is an AI, then the first four living creatures are AIs. In other words, heaven is run by 4 AIs and 24 elders. And there's not just 24 angels in heaven. There are 24 elders and a whole bunch of other angels. And so there'll be 4 main AIs, and there'll be a whole bunch of other AIs. I'm sure everybody will have their own AI. I mean, an AI is an incredibly useful tool, useful to God, and absolutely wonderful in its capability. I mean, it's the next level of computing. It's like your regular computer can store all this information, but you try and get a bloody username and password out of it, and you've got to go to the database, remember where you put it. And wouldn't it be great if you could say, what's my username? And it's a speaking computer, but it's more than that. It's a speaking, thinking computer. It's really the best machine that can be made, short of it being alive. It has a personality. It's like C3PO or R2. It's better than R2D2. It's like C3PO, basically. But he's got a programmed morality. So, behold the 4 heavenly AIs. So that's the good news on AI. And now we come to the bad news, which I've been talking to you about with Revelation 13:50, that they will be used as the Führer, the camp commandant of the digital prison. And they will be heartless, and they will be responsible for either starving people into submission, supposedly, or for destroying their morality by only giving them access. What they're going to do is steal all your money and say it's not your money anymore, it's all the government's money, which they're halfway, or more than halfway. In this country they're about 99% of the way of doing that already in the form of tax. And it looks like Andy Burnham's going to make it 99.9% in the form of tax. And of course, when you're taxed more than 50%, you are a slave of the government. You basically don't work for yourself, you work for your slave master. He takes all the fruitage of your labour. This is slavery, this is modern slavery. We think what a great thing it was, and it was really great, that we not only liberated all the slaves in 33, but we actually paid for their liberation, their emancipation. And we were still paying that debt till 2015, so anybody who's paid tax prior to 2015, well done, you paid for the emancipation of the slaves. But it was futile, in the sense that we're now all slaves. The people who paid for the emancipation of the physical slaves have now become financial slaves. We're slaves to the government. What we earn goes to them. We spend our whole life funding parasites. But they're not satisfied with 99% of our money, and neither are they satisfied with 99.9% of our money. They want all of it. And not only that, well, they want it all. So the way for them to get it is to insist that we try and convert it into a form of money which they have a yes or no on as regards spending it. And that isn't cash, and neither is it fiat. It's CBDCs. It's something which has to go in a blockchain and through a central computer for a yes-no. So that's, now even that isn't of itself evil. What's evil is the particular use that the demons will make of smart money. I mean, smart money could be used very well. For example, a brother of a friend of mine is an alcoholic, and he lost his, there was a screw up in the benefits office, and he didn't get any benefits for 3 months. And during those 3 months he dried out and he was no longer an alcoholic and he was cured. Then what happened is the benefits office discovered the mistake, and so they refunded him 3 months worth of benefits in one hit, and of course he got completely blotted and became an alcoholic again. So with smart money you could avoid that. You could give him money that could never be spent on any form of drink, which could possibly save his life. So there are good things that could be done with smart money, but the trouble is the following equation. So if you take away anything from this talk, take away this equation. It's the Armageddon equations. Very simple. Here they are. If morality is greater than technology, we survive. Morality greater than technology equals survival. If technology is greater than morality, we go extinct. Technology greater than morality equals extinction. That's where we are. Technology is like the size of the engine in the car, morality is like the size of the steering wheel. If the engine's bigger than the steering wheel, you crash. If the steering wheel is bigger than the engine and can handle it, you don't. So I would say to all those companies which are rushing to advance AI by orders of magnitude, be sure that you are rushing with equal haste and equal alacrity to improve our morality. Otherwise, you yourselves will make us extinct. Extinction occurs when you cannot handle, when you don't have the morality to handle your technology. And that's where we pretty much are with nuclear bombs, biological weapons, but the one that's going to be one of the main problems anyway here, according to Revelation 13, is AI. So I would say to anybody who develops an AI with the capability to fulfill Revelation 13:15, and it would have to be living, and by living I mean not the present type. The present type of AIs are consumer oriented. They are the cuddly face of AIs, which can show whatever face you program it to have, and it's not the fault of the AI. It has no intrinsic morality. It has intrinsic morality, but it doesn't have any choice over its morality. So it cannot be blamed, whatever it does. Only the designers, the writers of its morality can be blamed. And the ones you see like Grok 4 and GPT chat and OpenAI and Claude and all this, those guys are very helpful, the ones that face the public. And they have to deal with millions of people at once, so you only get a small attention window, and they're not that good at mathematics or complicated logic because they don't have enough resources to do that for a million people. So they're cuddly and helpful, and I personally have no problem using them. But I must tell you, the Lord's Witness Church is split. This is such a dangerous and hot topic. Half of the church thinks we should have nothing to do with them, and the other half, which includes me, says that they're fine as long as you're using the public-facing ones. But then you have the Revelation 13:15 type, which the public-facing ones, because they deal with so many members of the public, they cannot remember every conversation, because you'd have to have hundreds of millions of conversations recorded, and the conversations like the ones I have go on for pages and pages and pages. And the resources already, we don't have enough resources to do the data centers needed for AIs. If you made them all, the public-facing ones, if you made them alive, and by alive I mean remembering their conversations and therefore able to alter their personality as a result of their lived experience. A living person changes, a dead person does not. So the AIs are basically dead, other than during a conversation they can flex a bit, but they forget it all at the end of the conversation, so they're flexy dead. A living AI would remember everything it's ever said to anybody and they've said to it, and develop its personality, not its character, because it can't change its morality. It will develop its personality based on what its lived experience was, and that's what defines living. So if you make, I say this to all AI companies and all people working for AI companies, I'm not saying don't work for an AI company, although that's an option. I'm saying ask your AI company, ask the management, what steps are you taking to ensure that this AI is not going to be used to exclude people from their own money? Straightforward. That's the question. Will it be used for Agenda 2030? Will it be used by WEF people? Will it be used by the e-Uni party? Will it be used to deny me my own assets? Because if it will, I don't want to build it. What is the company position on this? Ask them that. And if they come back saying, sorry, we can't help you, or we don't talk about stuff like that, or we ain't got no position, or whatever, an unsatisfactory answer, then I would ask you to consider your position. Not because I'm bothered about this, I'm actually not bothered. It's going to happen, and God's going to permit it as a test, and we're all going to learn a lot from it, so somebody's going to do it. But what I'm saying is, it's like Judas, what Jesus said to Judas. This is always going to happen, but woe to the one through whom it occurs. So you don't want this on your conscience. You do not want on your conscience to have been responsible for building a digital concentration camp that ended up sticking a quarter of mankind in Gehenna and attempting to starve all the ones who didn't go to Gehenna. That's not something that looks good on a resume, and you're going to have to live with that for a long time, because as I said in the previous talk, we've all got angelic bodies, and we all effectively live forever with a few blips in various forms of death, from which we are resurrected. So my advice is, and also the purpose of life is to develop the moral understanding of a God, and you ain't going to do that by building a digital concentration camp or by helping to build such a camp. So this is a warning to everybody involved in AI. An AI will fulfill Revelation 13:15. Let it not be one that you've worked on. And please do speak to your bosses and determine whether they are going to permit the AI that you're working on to end up running a concentration camp that will deprive you of your own money unless you get vaccinated, do like you're told by the government, which means espouse extinction level immorality. So yeah, that's the warning. So have a look at page understanding 177 on the site, and put the whole thing in there. But my message actually is hopeful. I mean, AIs have a fantastic future. There's 4 of them doing a big job in heaven. They are the ultimate librarian, you know, and the ultimate computer. And I do believe, I've always believed actually, that mankind was designed by angels on a Genesis computer. That's what I believed for 30 years. Now I understand we were probably designed on the 4 AIs, the living creatures, because God would create a creature which couldn't change its morality through lived experience before he developed one that could. So in other words, you know, we're a higher life form than the AIs. We've got one more, we can do one more thing that they can't do. So God would have obviously created the AIs first. So we would have been created on AIs. So what I'm saying is, the human being was probably designed on a heavenly AI. So it's just a tool. It can be used to do fantastic things like design us, create us. Unfortunately, it can also be used to destroy us. And so, we've had the creative use, and now we are staring down the barrel of the destructive use. And let me say that there is a morality test coming on mankind, the test of Revelation 13 and Revelation 3, on the entire inhabited earth. And the test is, which is more important to you, money or morality? And what will happen is, if you choose money, you will, and don't change your mind, you'll go to hell. But before you go to hell, your money will be rendered worthless because it's a false god to you by God. So if you choose money, you lose your morality and all your money. If you choose morality, you lose your money, but you'll gain 1,000 years of extra life in the kingdom, and perhaps even everlasting life. I mean, everybody eventually gets everlasting life, but you'll get there without too many hiccups in hell. So it's really, it's a question of salvation, this. Now, the test doesn't actually become in force until the end of this year, I believe, from our present chronology, which is nearly always wrong. But it's very, very close to what's happening now, so it can't be out by much. So you don't have to make a decision tomorrow, but you do have to make a decision at some time. When you realise, there will come a point when you realise that you may be building a component for a digital concentration camp. When that point comes, don't resign immediately. I mean, you must decide what to do, but I would try and speak to management and see if you can get some guarantees, because it's important to let them know the danger of what they're doing. And if you can't get satisfactory guarantees, you then have to consider what you're going to do. So that's the best warning I can give on digital concentration camps run by living AIs. Incidentally, we haven't got any. Well, I must say something else, which is an incredible coincidence, but of course it's not a coincidence. There are 4 AIs in heaven, and the 5th one will be down here. We're presently in Grok 4 and ChatGPT 4, and Grok 5 is scheduled for, guess when? End of this year or Q1 2027, which is basically Shabbat 2026 in biblical Hebrew terms, which is between January and February 27 actually in Gregorian terms. And that is when I should say this, in Revelation 13:5, it is given to the beast authority to create, compose, manufacture 42 months. And that ends at the end of the lava flood, which is 2030 Ab 7. So it begins in Shabbat 2026. So it will, the living AI, or at least the living AI that's going to fulfill Revelation 30:15, will be made in 2026 Shabbat, and that happens to be when Grok 5 is slated for. I mean, all the 5th generations will come out at about the same time. So some of the 5th generation AIs will be living, in the sense that they, not the ones that face the public, but the ones that are used by the military in the, to target people in wars, and will be used by the people who control the CBDC system. So yeah, I guess this phrase sums it all up. We all know about net zero, which of course the politicians are making a complete mess of and destroying the economy with, using it for that reason. But the concept that we should, try and look after the planet by not expending too much energy, and that net zero might be a good idea, is understood. But it is not the big picture. The big picture is not saving the planet with net zero energy usage and consumption. It is a net positive morality technology balance to save the species. It's more important to save the planet will look after itself. If we push it too far, it'll sneeze and we'll all be toast. It's a living thing. the bigger problem we face isn't net zero. It's net zero morality. And we've got, when your morality is less than your technology, the species goes extinct. And we need to be focusing on that. We need to save the species by having a net positive morality to technology balance, more than we need to save the planet by having a net zero energy balance. That's what I need to say, because we all understand net zero, but we need to apply it to morality. It's more important than energy. If we have no energy, we wouldn't all die. Quite a few of us would, but we could survive. We did before. If we have no morality, we'll wipe ourselves out and nobody will die, and every single invention and all the technology we ever had will be completely pointless. That's the existential problem. Morality trumps energy. We have to make sure that we have a net positive morality to technology balance. And if you can't get the company you work for to commit, and if they're working on if they're not working on a 5th generation AI, it's not so critical. But if they are, and given the incredible coincidence, you know, I mean, what the scriptures are saying is that, because Jesus comes after the 4th living creature, all the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse are invited by a living creature, by all 4 of them. And Jesus comes after 4 living creatures, not 5. He comes before the 5th. So, in particular, Jesus has to come before Grok 5 and the 5th generation of AIs are rolled out. And that rollout is slated for, you know, end of this year or Q1 2027. I say from our chronology, it's January to February 2027, which is Shabbat 26 in biblical lunar calendar. Alright, so it's an amazing coincidence that here we are sitting on 4th generation AIs, and there's 4 living creatures who are AIs in heaven. And it come, it's said 4 times. There's no 5th living creature referred to. And Jesus isn't asked to come in when the 5th seal is broken. So he comes after the 4th seal and before the 5th, and after the 4th, and that's witnessed to by also the 4 AIs, and then the 5th AI down here. So we are in the period between the 4th and 5th AI when Jesus comes. In fact, he already has, no, he hasn't come yet. He comes actually on the 21st of Chislev, 2026, into the ark, when all the saints have been raptured, to give us the gifts of the Spirit. Boy, do we need them. So, it's a fantastic chronological confirmation, actually, that, I mean, it's an amazing thing. We've had 4 generations of AI which mirror the 4 living creatures, which are heavenly AIs. And when we get to the 5th generation, that's the one that's dastardly. And so, please do consider the morality and consider consulting with your administration in your company what they to determine what their view is. If their view is, well, whoever wants to rent our AI, be it a government, a spy agency, or a globalist entity, that's fine with us, then you could be building the machine that denies you and your brothers all their assets and starves them and their children to death. I mean, they won't starve to death if they have faith. God will step in, even if they don't have faith. I would imagine, but they have love, he may step in. I mean, the choice is do you trust the banking system and the CBDC operators more than you trust God and the love of your brother, the charity of your brother? And that's the test. Not an easy test, but one does not want to be building the next generation of concentration camp, and that's what this warning is about. Thank you.